All right, in this presentation, we will look at how to say things like, I had said, she had made, we had played. In Portuguese, if you want to say things like the phrases above, it's actually pretty easy. First, you take the imperfect tense form of the verb ter or haver. Either one works. And you can see the conjugation tables below. And you use the pronoun that fits what you want to say. All right, I, you, he, she, we, you guys, they. All right, then you take another verb, drop the last two letters, AR, ER, IR, or OR. You know, for the por, compor, impor, you gotta change those a little bit, right? And you add an ADO for AR verbs and an IDO for ER and IR verbs. And you do not have to worry about gender or number in this tense. Doesn't have to be gender number agreement, as the endings will always be in the masculine singular form. So it's a two-step process, a little easier than the last video, a little easier than what I went over the last one, but you'll get this. So here we go. Step one, choose the pronoun and verb, either ter or haver you want. So for ter, it's eu tinha, right? I had. Você, ele, ela tinha. You, he, or she had. Nós tínhamos, we had. Vocês, eles, elas tinham. You guys or they had. Or you can use haver. Eu havia, I had. Você, ele, ela havia. You, he, or she had. Nós havíamos, we had. And vocês, eles, elas haviam. You guys or they had. So you take one of those forms. Then the second part is you take the next verb you want to use. You drop the last two letters. You add the new ending. So for AR verbs, ADO, ado. So it's falado. ER verbs and IR verbs, it's ido, the IDO. So receber becomes recebido, dirigir becomes dirigido. Now there are a few verbs whose root changes when you use this form. Okay, dizer becomes dito, fazer becomes feito, escrever becomes escrito, ver becomes visto, por becomes posto, entregar becomes entregue, imergir becomes imerso, and vir becomes vindo. But other than that, if there are other AR, ER, IR verbs, okay, the endings are ADO or IDO. So let's look at a few examples now of sentences, how you put these together. So here we go. Again, step one, choose the pronoun and verb, either the ter or haver, okay, that you want. Step two, take the next verb, drop the last two letters, add the new ending. So the sentences examples are, you can see down below. I had spoken. I had, eu tinha, or eu havia. Spoken, falado. I had eaten. Eu tinha, or eu havia, comido. Right? Comer, drop the ER, add the IDO, comido. I had received. Eu tinha, or eu havia, recebido. I had driven. Eu tinha, eu havia, dirigido. I had made. Eu tinha, or eu havia, feito. I had seen. Eu tinha, or eu havia, visto. You had said. Você tinha, or você havia, dito. He had cooked. Ele tinha, or ele havia, cozinhado. She had made. Ela tinha, or ela havia, feito. Remember, there's no gender distinguishing going on here. So it's ele tinha feito, ela tinha feito. All right, kind of thing. So you don't have to worry about changing the last letter, like you do on the last video we went over. You have to do gender and number agreements. This one you don't, because we're using had, tinha, or havia. Okay. The bell had rung. O sino, it, okay, tinha or havia soado, from the verb soar, to sound or to ring. Drop the AR, add the ADO. Now, we had played. Nós tínhamos, or nós havíamos, jogado. Again, don't have to worry about gender and number. It's not jogados like it was in the last video. It's simply jogado because we're using the verb ter or haver. We're not using the verb ser. When you use the verb ser, like in the last video, you need the gender and number agreement. When it's the verb ter or haver, you do not. All right, so nós tínhamos or nós havíamos jogado. We had defined. Nós tínhamos or nós havíamos definido, from the verb definir, which is to define. Drop the IR and add an IDO, definido. You guys had called. Vocês tinham, or vocês haviam, ligado. They had perceived. Eles tinham, eles haviam, percebido, from the verb perceber. Drop the ER, add the IDO. They had accepted. Eles tinham, or eles haviam, aceitado, from the verb aceitar. They had written. Eles tinham, or in this case I put elas, okay, to give you the feminine. Elas tinham, elas haviam, escrito. Again, this just shows there is no gender number agreement. You don't have to worry about that with this ter or haver. Tinha, havia. So elas tinham or elas haviam escrito. They had come. Eles tinham, eles haviam vindo. And they had given. Eles tinham, sorry, in this case I use elas again. Elas tinham, elas haviam dado. Again, no gender number agreement. It's just if it's an AR verb, it ends in ADO. If it's an ER or IR verb, it ends in IDO. Pretty simple. A little bit easier than the last video we went over, but it's just a matter of what you want to say. In the last video, it was, I was taken, the letter was written. We're using the verb ser, right? So it was, or I was, or we were. In this one, we're using had spoken, had made, had played, had perceived, had accepted, so that you're using the verb ter or haver. And because of that, you don't need to worry about gender number agreement on the second verb. So hopefully that makes some sense. And now just practice it. Just kind of get used to it, look for it, and try to say some things using this blueprint. So there you go.